Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got the latest from Walther, the WMP. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. The WMP is chambered in 22 WMR 22 Magnum. And this is the first 22 Magnum that I'm aware of Walther creating. And it actually turns out to be a really nice gun. The first thing I'll mention is, from everything I can tell looking at it, reading the site and everything, it's really a Walther. It's not an inner arms gun or any of the other kind of low-end 22 replicas of a bigger gun that don't hold up well. This is actually manufactured by Walther, using the same quality components, the same quality metals, so it's going to be a good, reliable, long-term gun. It's not going to wear out in a couple thousand rounds like a lot of the cheap 22 replicas that you find. It actually has a lot of styling that almost is borrowed from some of the prior guns. So I've got a PPQ here. This is a classic PPQ. This happens to be the paddle one, but the newer non-paddle ones, the button ones, are very similar. But you'll see the slide serrations are quite similar. The texture on the grip is very similar, kind of the way the bulges and the patterning, and the trigger guards are really similar. So a lot of styling from this. And then if you take the Creed, this will be a little harder to show, so I'm just going to more just describe it, but the overall shape of the grip is very close to the Creed, using a lever style takedown instead of the little pull tabs, and it's a hammer-fired gun. So I'm not going to say it's necessarily based on any of these, but they used a lot of the styling from them. And it comes with these fairly large 15-round magazines. They're kind of reminiscent of the 5.7 mags as far as just the being a little wider and thicker, and they're polymer. They hold 15 rounds of WMR 22 Magnum, so which of course is a longer shell, so you need a bit wider magazine. And there are 2 of these magazines in the box. Because these magazines are unique to this gun, it may take a little while before they're available for purchase. And it does have little grips to slide it down and make it easier to load the rounds. A lot of times with 22, any of the 22s, the cases can be a little on the thinner side. So trying to force the follower down with the top round is not a good idea. And that's why you'll find a lot of 22s have a design similar to this. This one's easy to get a hold of. It operates smoothly. I found these magazines really easy to load and use. And when you put one in, it fits nice and flush and contours with the grip, and you do have a full 3-fingered grip. This is a full-size gun. It's definitely not a 2/3 size replica. It's a full-size gun. It's 8.2 inches long from front to back. It's 5.68 inches tall, and it's 1.48 inches thick. It weighs 27.8 ounces, and it has a 4.5-inch barrel. So it's a good size gun, and with 22 Magnum is a more powerful cartridge than 22 LR. It has a big old fireball, but there's no real noticeable recoil on this. It's very comfortable to fire. It's something that, despite the big fireball and the big loud bang, it definitely gets your attention when it goes off. Again, it kind of reminds me of 5.7 or the TCM cartridges that have just that big old plasma ball and a big loud bang, but no recoil or anything else. So they're fun to shoot, and it's one of those guns that when you're shooting, it just puts a smile on your face. The sights on this are half good. So the front sight is a fiber optic red dot, real easy to see and stands out. The back sight's a blackout sight. I'm not a fan of blackout sights. There's enough of a gap on this one. I was still able to locate the target and be able to center it, but I would prefer if it had a couple dots on it to be able to lock in on. It does come with another sight, a shorter sight, comes maybe up to about here. If you don't like the point of impact, you can swap out the sights. And it comes red dot ready. You just remove this plate and you can put all of the common optics that are being put on pistols today. And unlike some prior guns that they've come out with, it does come with the plates in the box, so ready to go right out of the box, along with the tool and the necessary screws to put it on. The plates are polymer. This is aluminum, but the replacement plates for putting an optic on it are polymer, but it's a 22. So it's not like it's going to have a very violent slide cycling. So I haven't tried an optic on it, but I have every reason to believe it'll work well. And 5-slot Picatinny rail, so you can mount lasers and lights and whatever other things that you might want to mount on it. It does not have replaceable back straps like a lot of the PPQs do. This is a solid grip. This is the way the grip is, and that's the way it's going to be. You're not going to be able to change it. It does have a full ambi mag release. I did find the mag releases were a little bit sticky at times. You had to kind of really push them in there to get it to work. But it wasn't non-functional. There wasn't a problem with it. But what I do find that's kind of unique is it's got paddles, but it's got paddles, not just a paddle. And each of the paddles are independent. What I did, using it at the range, I found the paddles were far smoother and easier to use, regardless of which one you chose to use. Of course, you would use this one here if you're holding it left-handed. But the paddle releases on this work quite well. The button releases work okay. So my thought is I would get used to using the paddles, which I like the paddles when I find guns that have them. I can use either the paddle or the button interchangeably. But the interesting thing about these paddles being independent is your other fingers won't interfere with actually operating the paddle. Now this is a 22, however, they actually have it in the instructions that you can decock it by, of course, clearing it and then pulling the trigger. So I'm not going to do a bunch of dry fire. This isn't meant to sit in front of the TV banging away at the trigger, but I'll be able to do enough dry fire to demonstrate the trigger. So I did cycle it. It's ready to go. There's a decent amount of take-up. A little bit of creep in the brake, but it's an overall nice brake. The reset is most of the way out, and you get a little bit of a click and then some take up and you're back on the brake and then the brake again. So overall it's quite a nice trigger. It's not quite a PPQ trigger. It's got a little bit longer reset, but overall it's light, it's smooth. A little bit of creep in there kind of disappears when you're at the range. So I found it easy to shoot well, other than the fact I had to work for it a little bit with the sights. But beyond that, the trigger and everything else associated with it, it was an easy gun. As far as ammo sensitivity, with 22s, ammo sensitivity can be a thing. They're straight blowback. The slides have to be lightened in order to be able to handle the fact that the rounds are less powerful than, let's say, a 9mm. But they actually kind of on their site, they've got a listing of fairly clear delineating the things that will like and the things that won't. I fed it CCI, and the things I fed it ran flawlessly. But it doesn't like rat shot. It doesn't like a Gila. It doesn't like 30 grain. And it doesn't like the Super X 40 grain. Other than that, it should run on most standard ammo, good high quality ammo. But if you go to their site, and I'm sure they'll update the list periodically of things they found to work with it and not work with it. But CCI, Federal, most of the ones that are popular that you'll see out on the shelves it works with. And Aguila has tended to not be a really good ammo overall anyway. And with the exception of the Winchester Super X 40 grain, as a rule, 40 grain is what you're going to find most 22 Magnums like. That's kind of the default for the caliber. Now, as far as 22s go, a lot of them have really weird takedown procedures. This one does not. You lock it back, you flip down the lever, you release the slide, and it comes right apart. And here's where, when you look at it, you can see that this isn't one of these cheap knockoff 22 lookalikes. This is designed like a real gun. If I had taken it apart and opened the video showing you this and told you it was a 9mm or a 40 or a 45 or a 10mm, you'd say, yeah, I get it. Other than the hammer, it would look like the quality of any regular centerfire gun that you're used to. Really robust rails at the front, nice thick robust rails at the back. You got the hammer, you got the bump for the safety, for the drop safety, and it is a drop safe gun. So, and then it's got dual slide stop slide release that's well constructed and solid. Both of these work equally well. A lot of times you find the ones with these duals, one, usually it's this one, is kind of wishy-washy, and the other one works good. These both work quite well. Of course, the barrel and recoil spring mechanism are going to be a little different, but it has a standard captive recoil spring, polymer guide rod, just like you'd see in pretty much any other gun. And notice I took the barrel out just like I would a center fire. This strange locking block down here at the bottom locks the barrel in, so it is blowback, the barrel's fixed. But from a disassembly standpoint, I just take it apart like any other gun. The recoil buffer up here, really robust, heavy, thick barrel. And you can see that this isn't just your typical pot metal outer housing with an insert in it. It's got a kind of an interesting looking feed ramp. It did work quite well. Never had any malfunctions from round 1 till the last round. Didn't have any malfunctions. Of course, you occasionally will get a malfunction in the ammo, but I didn't encounter any. I'm going to try to show you the barrel. Of course, being a 22, it's a little harder to focus with the camera, but it is very well manufactured, conventional rifling. You can kind of see it there a little bit. Overall, I would say that I'm looking at the manufacturing quality of a centerfire gun that happens to be chambered in a rimfire cartridge. Putting it back together is equally easy. Just got to make sure you have the right end of the recoil spring. And it sits down in this valley. So you kind of sits down in there so that this locking part of the locking block can actually engage with the frame. And line the thing back up, lock it back, flip the lever. Of all the various 22s I've worked with, this one is probably the easiest to disassemble, maintain, and reassemble. Even prior Walther 22s had some different things where you had to kind of release something, pull the slide back, pull it over a hump, slide it forward. This just comes apart like any other gun you've got. Glock, PPQ, doesn't matter. You know, the difference between the little pull tabs and the levers kind of insignificant. This one does work very easy. There's nothing you have to push on this side or play with. You just lock it back and flip the lever down. So I'm looking at a gun that's really easy to live with, easy to maintain, really high quality. It does have an MSRP of $549, which puts it up on the higher price for a 22. You can get a centerfire gun for this price. But it is a 22 Magnum. Those tend to be a little bit more expensive than 22 LR. But overall, I would look at it and say, you're getting what you're paying for with this. Kind of like the Ruger Mark series. You're paying a little more for them, but you're getting what you pay for. The thing about this versus, let's say, a Ruger Mark series is this is more like a regular PPQ or PDP or any of those. So if you pick this up and you're training with it and you're using it for practice, it's an experience you're used to. And if you're taking this out for, let's say, small game hunting, varminting, things like that, which they actually market heavily towards that, outdoorsmen carrying it when you're hiking, things like that for defense and hiking in the outdoors environment or small game, the 22 Magnum cartridge is going to give you the power you need to put down, you know, smaller things. I probably wouldn't want to come up across a bear with this as my defense. Probably more just going to make them angry. But anything else smaller that you might encounter that have to dispatch, this would work quite well. One note on the magazine, so I did mention this comes with 2 15 rounds, which is true. It's also available in a 10 round version if you happen to be in a less free location, so that it may, you know, the availability will be a little bit higher for this. Beyond that, if you're looking for a fun, reliable 22 Magnum, this is probably a good one to look at. If you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Getter, kind of everywhere. And thank you.